The chamber was enormous, built to hold representatives from 1,000 different worlds. Do-hyun Park stood in the center, his dark suit simple compared to the elaborate garments and biological displays surrounding him. Above him, the council members sat in their designated sections, some breathing oxygen like him, others in sealed environments filled with methane or liquid compounds. He had stood here many times before, but today felt different. Min-ji Choi stood 3 steps behind him, her tablet ready but her face carefully neutral. She had worked with Do-hyun for 15 years and knew him well enough to sense the tension in his shoulders. This was the day humanity had worked toward for half a century. 50 years of proving themselves, of contributing, of following every rule and exceeding every expectation. The speaker, a being called Velther from the Quintari species, rose from the central platform. His crystalline body refracted light in cold patterns across the chamber walls. When he spoke, his voice came through the translation system in every language simultaneously. The Council has reviewed humanity's petition for full membership. We have examined your contributions, studied your history, and debated your place among us for many cycles. Dawn felt Min-ji shift behind him. They both knew that preamble. It was never good. However, the Council has decided that humanity is not yet ready for full membership status. Your species remains too aggressive, too unpredictable in your reactions, too willing to resort to conflict. Furthermore, your rapid expansion concerns many member species who feel threatened by your growth rate. The words fell like stones into still water. Do-hyun did not move. He had prepared for rejection, but not for what came next. Therefore, the Council imposes the following sanctions, effective immediately. Humanity must withdraw from 40% of your colonial holdings, specifically those in sectors designated as too close to established Council member territories. You will surrender control of the Janus trade routes and the Keller shipping lanes. You will accept monitoring stations in your home system, to be staffed by Council observers. These measures will remain in place until such time as humanity demonstrates sufficient maturity for reconsideration. The chamber filled with the various sounds of alien approval. Clicking, humming, the release of chemical signals that the translation system rendered as agreement. Do-hyun heard Min-ji's sharp intake of breath behind him. These sanctions were not just a rejection. They were designed to cripple human expansion, to put them in a box and keep them there. Admiral Hana Lim watched from the observation gallery, her military uniform crisp and decorated with medals from peacekeeping operations. Her hand tightened on the railing. She had commanded human forces that had saved 3 council species from extinction during the Vara crisis. She had lost good people protecting council worlds. And this was how they responded. Do-hyun finally spoke, his voice calm and clear. "May I address the council?" Velther gestured permission, clearly expecting protest or anger. "The council has spoken, and humanity hears you. We understand your concerns and accept your decision." Do-hyun paused, and in that pause, something changed in the chamber. The approval sounds faltered. "We will comply fully with all sanctions and requirements." Velther's crystalline structure seemed to dim slightly. "You accept these terms? Without negotiation?" "Yes. You have made your position clear. Humanity values our relationship with the Council and will not create conflict over this decision. However, we will need time to organize such a large withdrawal. Our people have built lives in those colonies. They have families, businesses, homes. We request 6 months to conduct an orderly evacuation and transition." The council members began communicating among themselves. This was not the human response they had expected. They had prepared for threats, for demands, for the famous human stubbornness. Gracious acceptance was not in their calculations. A member from the Drexel delegation spoke up, her translator rendering her clicks into words. 6 months is acceptable. We are pleased that humanity shows wisdom in this matter. Dawn nodded. We try to learn from those with more experience than us. If there is nothing else, we will begin preparations immediately. Valther seemed uncertain for the first time. That is all. The Council acknowledges humanity's cooperation. You may depart. Dawn turned smoothly, Minji falling into step beside him. Hannah met them at the chamber exit, her face tight with controlled fury. They walked in silence through the crystalline corridors of the Council station until they reached the human delegation ship. Once inside, with the door sealed and privacy confirmed, Hannah spoke first. 6 months? We're actually going to let them do this to us? Dahyun sat down, suddenly looking very tired. We're going to do exactly what they asked. Every single thing. Dahyun, those colonies represent billions of people, trillions in infrastructure. The trade routes are vital to our economy. And monitoring stations in our home system. That's a humiliation. Yes, Dahyun agreed. It is. Minji was already on her tablet, fingers moving quickly. I'm sending the withdrawal orders now. All human personnel, all facilities, all operations. Full evacuation from the sanctioned territories. Wait, Hannah said. All operations? They only demanded we withdraw from the colonies themselves. Dahyun looked at her steadily. They said we were too aggressive, too unpredictable. So we will be neither. We will be perfectly compliant. We will withdraw not just from where they demand, but from everywhere that might cause them concern. We will be the most cooperative, the most obliging species they have ever encountered. Something in his tone made Hannah pause. She studied his face, seeing something she had not noticed before. You're planning something. No, Dahyun said quietly. I'm planning nothing. I'm simply going to give them exactly what they asked for. A universe without humanity causing them problems. He stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the massive council station, with ships from 1,000 worlds docked at its arms. They wanted us to know our place. So we will. Far away from them. Minji looked up from her tablet. The message is sent. All departments, all colonies, all operations. Begin immediate preparation for total withdrawal. 6-month timeline. Total withdrawal? Hannah repeated. Total, Dahyun confirmed. If we're not wanted at the table, there's no point standing in the kitchen. Send word to Earth. Humanity is coming home. Captain Yoonho Nam stood on the observation deck of the transport ship, watching New Jeju colony grow smaller in the viewport. Behind him, 50,000 colonists were settling into their assigned quarters for the journey home. Children pressed their faces against windows, watching the only world they had ever known fade into the distance. The colony had been beautiful. Established 30 years ago, it had grown into a thriving world of parks and cities, farms and universities. Yoonho had been born there, in the first hospital built by human hands on alien soil. Now he was the last captain to leave, ensuring every human soul was safely aboard before departure. His first officer approached quietly. All ships have cleared orbit, sir. The colony is empty. Not empty, Yoonho corrected. We left the buildings, the infrastructure. Someone else will use it. Without the fusion cores, the water purification systems, the agricultural processors? Sir, we took everything that makes it work. Yoonho nodded slowly. Our technology. Our designs. We built it. We're taking it home. We left them the shells. They can fill them however they want. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on 40 worlds. Human colonies, some decades old, some just established, all emptying in an orderly exodus. No protests in the streets. No resistance. Just quiet, efficient departure. On the trading station called Hope's Harbor, Jiwon Beek was closing down her family's merchant business. For 3 generations, the Beek family had operated here, building relationships with 24 species, moving goods across 100 worlds. The warehouse that had buzzed with activity for 60 years was nearly empty now. A Drexel merchant named Korax approached her, his multiple arms gesturing concern. Jiwon, please reconsider. Your family has always been fair to us. These council sanctions, they do not apply to independent traders like yourself. You can stay. Jiwon smiled sadly at him. Korax, you've been a good friend to my family. But I received orders. All humans are withdrawing, not just from the sanctioned zones. All of us. But why? You are not soldiers. You are merchants. This station is neutral territory. It is, she agreed. But humanity has decided to respect the Council's wishes completely. They said we were too aggressive, spread too far too fast. So we are condensing. Going home. All of us. Your warehouses, your contracts, the shipping routes you maintain, who will handle them? I've sent messages to all our partners. Contracts will be fulfilled or compensation paid. The warehouses are being sold at fair market value. The shipping routes are public knowledge. Anyone can use them. Korax's translator struggled to render his distress. But the connections, the relationships, the networks of trust that make trade work smoothly, these cannot be sold. No, Jiwon said gently. They cannot. I am sorry, friend. I truly am. She left him standing in the empty warehouse, the lights dimming behind her for the last time. At the Xenobiology Research Station Gamma, Dr. Taiwan Kang was methodically erasing databases. His colleague, a Quintari scientist named Belmoth, watched in growing alarm. Taiwan, stop this. That is 50 years of collaborative research. Data we collected together, discoveries we made as partners. Taiwan continued typing. The human portions of the research, yes. Our observations, our analysis methods, our experimental designs. I'm leaving all the data your people collected. But our contributions belong to us. This is madness. Science belongs to all species. You are setting back our understanding of biological systems by decades. Taiwan paused, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. Then perhaps the Council should have thought about that before deciding we were too dangerous to include. This data was created by human researchers, funded by human institutions, using human-developed techniques. We shared it freely because we were partners. But if we're not partners anymore, we're taking our work home. But the medical applications, the treatments we developed for the Krell plague, for the Sorvan genetic disorder, these save lives. Yes, and I've left all the final treatment protocols. What I'm removing is our research methodology, our diagnostic tools, our developmental process. You have the cure. Work backward if you want to understand it. Belmoth watched helplessly as decades of cooperation vanished into encrypted files that only human computers could access. Your people are making a terrible mistake. Perhaps, Taiwan said, but it's all mistake to make. Engineer Somin Han oversaw the dismantling of the Mars Terraforming Initiative support station in the Sendia system. The project was a council-sponsored effort to make 3 worlds habitable. And humans had been contributing their expertise in atmospheric processing for 20 years. The REL project coordinator approached her, his sensory stalks waving in agitation. Engineer Han, you cannot remove the atmospheric processors. The project will fail without them. These are human-designed units, built in human factories, using human patents. We're taking them home. But we have a contract. You are obligated to complete the project. Someone pulled up her tablet. Article 47 of the contract states that either party may terminate with 1 cycle's notice and full compensation for work completed. We're providing 6 months' notice and returning all payments for incomplete work. The contract is fulfilled. Legally, perhaps. But morally? We relied on your expertise. You are condemning our project to failure." "No," Soman said firmly. "We are removing ourselves from your project. The Council made it clear that human involvement in their affairs is not desired. We are respecting that. You have 6 months to find alternative solutions. The galaxy has many brilliant species. I'm sure you will manage." The patterns repeated across known space. Human doctors closed their clinics, leaving behind the buildings, but taking the diagnostic equipment they had designed. Human engineers shut down the facilities they had built, removing the key components that made them function. Human teachers left the universities, taking their lesson plans and research with them. And everywhere. The response was the same: polite, professional, absolute. Admiral Hannah Lim commanded the peacekeeping withdrawal from the Mars sector. Human forces had maintained peace between 3 species there for 12 years. As her ships prepared to depart, delegates from all 3 species came aboard her flagship. "Admiral, if you leave, war will resume within weeks. Our peoples have deep grievances. Then I suggest you find ways to resolve them without killing each other. Humanity will no longer serve as your buffer, but you are obligated under the Mara Accords to maintain peace." Hannah handed them a datapad. "The Mara Accords are hereby terminated, effective in 6 months with full notice as required. We came here to help. We stayed because we cared about your peoples. But the Council has decided that human involvement in galactic affairs is problematic. We are removing the problem. You would let us kill each other out of spite?" "No," Hannah said coldly. "We would let you take responsibility for your own peace. We are not your parents. We are not your protectors. We were your partners, and you rejected that partnership. Now you stand on your own." Minji Choi compiled reports from across human space, and the pattern was clear. Every human operation, every facility, every partnership, every presence, withdrawing. Not just from the areas the Council had sanctioned. From everywhere. She sent the summary to Doyon. His response was simple: "Good. Let them see what they asked for." The Quantari Medical Facility, once still prime, had been a gift from humanity 20 years ago, built after a plague had devastated 3 Quantari colonies. The building was magnificent, filled with advanced equipment and treatment rooms. When the humans left, the Quantari Medical Administration eagerly took control. Anticipating continued operation of one of the sector's best hospitals, Dr. Venelis stood in the diagnostic center, staring at the machines that lined the walls. They were beautiful, sleek devices that had saved countless lives. He touched the interface panel and watched it light up with options he did not fully understand. "Administrator, we have a problem," he called out. Administrator Corthan joined him, her crystalline structure gleaming under the facility lights. "What is wrong?" "The diagnostic array. It functions, but I cannot interpret the results. The humans, they used a classification system that integrated their medical knowledge with ours. I have the raw data, but without their analytical framework, I cannot determine what it means. Surely we can learn their system. Call their researchers." I tried. The communication channel is open, but they declined to provide consultation. They said all documentation was proprietary human medical technology and had been returned to human space. Corthan felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. "What about the training materials?" "The manuals?" "Gone. Taken with them. We have the equipment, administrator, but not the knowledge to use it properly. It is like having a ship without knowing how to fly it." Similar conversations happened across Council space. The agricultural worlds that the Drexel had claimed were lush and green, but the first harvest was failing. The modified crops that humans had engineered required specific soil treatments, specific watering schedules, specific microbial environments. The Drexel had the plants, but not the understanding of how to maintain them. Agricultural Director Vexram walked through fields of dying grain, his frustration growing. How did they make it look so easy? We followed the same planting schedule. His assistant checked her datapad. Director, I found a reference in the archived communications. The humans mentioned using something called companion microorganisms in the soil. Engineered bacteria that help the plants process nutrients. Where are these microorganisms? They took them. All biological samples were removed when they evacuated. They said it was their proprietary biotechnology. Vexram looked at the fields. 50,000 acres of valuable farmland, now producing crops that would barely be edible. Can we request samples from them? I sent an inquiry. They responded that they no longer provide biological materials to non-partner species. They suggested we develop our own agricultural methods. The economic impacts spread like ripples in a pond. The REL had built a manufacturing industry based on human-designed tools and processes. Those tools were breaking down, and replacement parts were not available. Human manufacturers politely declined all orders, stating they no longer shipped to Council space. The trade routes that humans had maintained, not through ownership, but through sheer presence and activity, were becoming dangerous. Pirates that had been kept in check by human patrol ships were growing bold. Merchant vessels that had relied on human-established safe harbors found those harbors empty and vulnerable. G1 Beak had been the last human trader in the sector, and her departure left a void that no one quite knew how to fill. The informal networks she had maintained, the relationships of trust between dozens of species, these did not transfer to the next merchant who tried to take her place. Korax tried to establish new trade routes, but found himself struggling. The human traders had known which species could be trusted, which ones required careful contracts, which ones honored their word. They had served as bridge species, translating not just language but culture and custom. Without them, misunderstandings multiplied. A shipment of Drexel thermal units arrived at a Krell station, but the Krell environmental requirements had been misunderstood. The units designed for high-heat environments were useless in Krell cold stations. The Drexel blamed the Krell for unclear specifications. The Krell blamed the Drexel for poor quality. Before, a human trader would have caught the incompatibility and prevented the problem. Now, the two species argued, their relationship souring. Defense Coordinator Kyung Lee had withdrawn the last human peacekeeping forces from the Mara sector exactly on schedule. She watched from human space as the predicted conflicts began. Within 3 weeks, border skirmishes started. Within 2 months, a full military engagement broke out between 2 of the 3 species. The third species, seeing opportunity, began expanding into disputed territories. The council convened an emergency session. Velther stood before the assembly, his crystalline body flickering with agitation. The situation in the Mara sector requires immediate intervention. We must send peacekeeping forces. A chorus of responses came back. No one wanted to commit their military to someone else's conflict. The humans had done it because they seemed to care about peace more than territorial gain. Without them, each species calculated the cost and decided it was not worth it. Perhaps we should request human assistance, suggested a REL Council member. No, Velther said firmly. We made our decision. We will handle this ourselves. But they could not. The conflict in the Mara sector escalated. Trade through that region stopped. Species that had relied on those routes suffered economic impacts. In the Council's economic sector, analysts compiled devastating reports. Merchant Prince Doran presented the findings to a closed session of senior council members. The economic contraction is more severe than projected. Human trade represented 17% of total galactic commerce, but their removal has disrupted supply chains across 40% of all trade routes. The cascade effects are multiplying. Surely other species can fill those roles, Velther insisted. In time, perhaps. But humans were uniquely positioned. They traded with everyone. They served as intermediaries between species that would not deal directly with each other. They provided services and goods that others did not know were needed until they were gone. What of the facilities we claimed? The colonies, the stations, the infrastructure they abandoned? Doran's response was grim. Largely useless. They took the knowledge, the specialized equipment, the trained personnel. We have buildings and basic machinery, but not the expertise to operate them at human levels of efficiency. It is like inheriting a library in a language we cannot read. Another analyst added, the medical sector is particularly impacted. Human medical research was accelerating at rates we did not fully appreciate. They publish 40% of all new medical research. That has dropped to zero. Current projects are stalling without their contributions. They are being vindictive, Velther declared. No, Doran corrected quietly. They are being absent. There is a difference. They have not sabotaged anything. They have not attacked anyone. They simply left and took their things with them. We told them they were not wanted. They believed us. The council session grew heated. Some members argued for reaching out to humanity, requesting their return. Others, led by Velther, insisted that showing such weakness would undermine council authority. They will return on their own, Velther predicted. When their economy collapses without council trade, they will come back and be grateful for whatever terms we offer. But reports from human space painted a different picture. Human ships patrolled their borders, but did not venture out. Communication channels remained open, but humans did not initiate contact. Trade requests went unanswered. Diplomatic inquiries received polite acknowledgments and nothing more. Ambassador Do-Yoon Park, retired now, lived quietly on Earth. He received many visitors. Council members trying to speak with him unofficially, seeking some way to reopen dialogue. He was courteous to all of them and said the same thing every time. Humanity thanks the Council for our time together. We learned much from you. We wish you well in your future endeavors. But Ambassador, surely there is room for discussion, for renewed cooperation? Why would we seek that? You made your position clear. We are too aggressive, too unpredictable. We would only cause you problems. It is better for everyone if we remain separate. The galaxy needs human contributions. Your medical research, your engineering, your peacekeeping. Then perhaps the galaxy should have thought about that before deciding we were not good enough to join. Every conversation ended the same way. Polite, firm, final. Minji Choi, now serving as Earth's Secretary of External Affairs, issued a single public statement. Humanity harbor no resentment toward the Council or its members. We simply have no desire to repeat previous patterns. We are building our future in human space. We wish all species well in building theirs. The cracks in Council society continued to spread, and no one quite knew how to stop them. 3 years had passed since humanity withdrew from Council space. The border between human territory and the rest of the galaxy had become a line that no human crossed. Ships from other species occasionally approached those borders, and they were always met with the same response. Admiral Hannah Lim commanded the border patrol from her flagship. When a Drexel trade vessel appeared at the border checkpoint, requesting permission to enter human space for commerce, she handled the response personally. Drexel vessel. This is Admiral Lim. Your request is denied. Admiral, we come in peace. We seek only trade. We have goods your people might want. Thank you for your interest. Humanity is not currently accepting trade relations with Council species. Please proceed to your destination outside human space. But Admiral, our economy, we need to trade. Surely we can negotiate terms. There are no terms to negotiate. Humanity is not interested in external trade at this time. This channel will now close. Safe travels. The Drexel ship lingered for an hour, perhaps hoping for a different response. When none came, it departed. Hana watched it go and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no regret. Just duty. This scene repeated itself dozens of times each month. Species that had once traded freely with humans now found their requests politely declined. The borders were not hostile. No weapons were pointed. No threats were made. The humans simply said no and meant it. Inside human space, a transformation was occurring. Dr. Baram Shin worked in a research facility on Mars that would have made council scientists weep with envy. The resources that had been spread across dozens of council joint projects were now concentrated in purely human research. The new fusion core design is operational, she reported to her team. Efficiency is 40% higher than our previous models. Her colleague, another researcher named Junho, examined the data. This is remarkable. If we had published this in the old days, it would have revolutionized energy production across the galaxy. Yes, and they would have had it for free because we always shared our breakthroughs. But now? Borm smiled slightly. Now it's ours. We can develop it fully, refine it, build our own infrastructure with it. No need to simplify it for other species. No need to wait for council approval. No need to share credit. Do you miss it? The collaboration? Borm considered the question. Sometimes. I miss the Quintari researcher I worked with, Balmoth. He had brilliant insights. But I do not miss the council committees, the restrictions, the constant justification of our work. Here, we research what we want, when we want, how we want. There is freedom in that. Across human space, similar stories unfolded. Artists who had tried to make their work accessible to alien sensibilities now created purely for human audiences. The results were raw, powerful, deeply human in ways that their previous work had not been. Musicians experimented with sounds and rhythms that other species had found disturbing. Poets wrote in structures that no translator could properly render. Painters used color combinations that only human eyes could fully appreciate. The culture that emerged was distinctly, defiantly human. In the council, the deterioration continued. 5 years after the human departure, the economic contraction had reached 18%. Quality of life measurements showed declines across 70% of member species. Conflicts had tripled. The medical situation was particularly dire. The Quintari faced a new strain of their ancestral plague, one that the old treatments did not fully address. They needed human expertise in viral evolution and treatment development. They needed it desperately. Velther, still the council speaker, though his authority had weakened considerably, refused to officially request human aid. We must find our own solutions. We cannot appear weak by begging them to return. But privately, individual species were making contact. The Rel sent a diplomatic mission to the human border. The Krell sent medical personnel requesting consultation. The Sorvin sent scientists hoping to restart research. Partnerships. Every mission received the same response from Minji Choi's office. Humanity appreciates your interest but declines to engage in collaborative projects at this time. We wish you success in your endeavors. Some species offered significant payment, trading rights, territorial concessions. The answer remained no. The council economists continued to document the collapse. Merchant Prince Doran, once optimistic about recovery, now presented reports filled with grim statistics. The problem is systemic, he explained to the council. Humans were not just traders or researchers or peacekeepers. They were connective tissue. They worked with everyone, connected disparate groups, filled gaps we did not know existed. Their absence has revealed how much we relied on them without realizing it. Surely we can adapt, a council member argued. We are adapting. But adaptation means accepting lower standards, reduced capabilities, decreased cooperation between species. We are learning to function without humans. But we are functioning less well. A REL representative asked a question many were thinking. Why will they not return? We have offered them everything they wanted before. Full membership, no restrictions, equal status. What more do they want? Doran looked tired. I do not think they want anything from us. That is what we fail to understand. They do not want our technology or our markets or our resources. They had access to all of that, and they walked away. They wanted to be respected, to be valued, to be treated as equals. We failed to give them that. And now they have moved on. The cultural impact was harder to measure, but equally significant. For 50 years, human music had been wildly popular across the galaxy. Human stories had been translated into thousands of languages. Human art had influenced alien creators across hundreds of worlds. All of that stopped. Humans created nothing for outside consumption anymore. The galaxy suddenly felt quieter, less vibrant, less interesting. A Krell artist named Shendal tried to explain it to his students. Human art was unique because it came from a species that experienced existence differently than we do. They saw time differently, felt emotions differently, understood beauty differently. Their perspective enriched our own. Without it, we are creating only for ourselves again. We are poorer for the loss. In the Mara sector, the conflict that had started small had grown into a devastating war. 3 species destroyed each other's worlds over grievances that had festered for generations. The Council watched helplessly, unable to commit the forces necessary to stop it. Hannah Lim watched from human space as the casualty reports came in. Billions dead, worlds burned, resources wasted. All because no one wanted to be the peacekeeper anymore. She thought about the years her forces had spent there, maintaining peace, preventing exactly this outcome. She thought about the soldiers she had lost doing it, and she felt no obligation to save them now. They made their choice, she said to her staff. We made ours. 7 years after the departure, the Council faced its greatest crisis. The Quantari plague was spreading, and nothing they tried was working. The death toll climbed into the millions. The same species that had pushed hardest for human expulsion was now dying, because they lacked human medical expertise. Some Council members demanded that Velther step down, and that new leadership request human aid. Others insisted that showing such weakness would destroy what remained of Council authority. The debate raged while Quentari died. Finally, a delegation approached Do-Yun Park directly. He was an old man now, retired for years, living in a quiet house overlooking the ocean. But he was still the face of humanity's last diplomatic mission to the Council. He agreed to meet with them. Not out of obligation, but out of basic courtesy. They sat in his garden, alien dignitaries surrounded by earth flowers. And they made their plea. Ambassador Park, we need your help. The Quantari are dying. We are willing to offer full membership, complete equality, reparations for the sanctions, anything you ask. Don listened patiently, his weathered face calm. When they finished, he poured them tea, a human custom they remembered from better days. Thank you for coming all this way. I am retired now. I do not speak for humanity officially, but I can tell you what our government will say. Please, anything. No. The word hung in the air like a stone. But Ambassador, your people, they are good. They care about life. Surely you will help. We do care. But we no longer care about you. The Council delegation sat in Do-Yun Park's garden, shocked into silence by his words. The old ambassador refilled their teacups with steady hands, as if he had not just refused to save millions of lives. You cannot mean that, one of them finally said. The Quantari are dying. Yes, Do-Hyun acknowledged. And that is a tragedy. But it is their tragedy, not ours. But you have the medical knowledge to save them. How can you withhold it? Do-Hyun set down the teapot and looked at them with eyes that had seen too much. 7 years ago, your council decided that humanity was too dangerous, too aggressive, too unpredictable to be trusted as equals. You imposed sanctions designed to restrict our growth and limit our influence. You made it clear that we were not wanted as partners. We were wrong. We admit it. That is why we are here. Wrong, Do-Hyun repeated softly. You were not wrong. You were honest. You told us exactly how you felt about us, and we respected that honesty. We left peacefully. We took nothing that was not ours. We broke no agreements. We simply went home. And now you punish us for that decision? No, we are not punishing you. Punishment would require us to care about you enough to want you to suffer. We do not. You are simply not our concern anymore. The delegation tried different approaches. They offered money, technology, territorial concessions. Do-Hyun refused everything with the same quiet courtesy. Finally, he stood. I will make one suggestion. You should present your formal request to Foreign Minister Hai Jin-song. She represents humanity's official position on external relations. I am simply a retired old man. They left his garden carrying a small gift, a flowering plant native to Earth. He gave one to every visitor. Most of them did not understand the significance. Foreign Minister Hai Jin-song received the council delegation in Geneva, in the same building where the United Nations had once met. She was younger than Do-Hyun, sharp-eyed and direct, and she had no patience for diplomatic maneuvering. Minister Song, we request humanitarian aid for the Quintari plague. We are prepared to negotiate terms. There are no terms to negotiate. Humanity declines your request. But you have the medical knowledge. You have researchers who understand this plague. You helped eradicate it before. We did. When we were partners. When we worked together toward common goals. That relationship ended at your request. We are offering full membership now. Everything humanity wanted before. Hai Jin smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You misunderstand. We do not want membership in your council. We never did, really. What we wanted was respect. Recognition that we had value beyond what we could provide to you. We wanted to be equals, not servants. You would have been equals. After 50 years of proving ourselves. After jumping through every hoop you designed. After accepting second-class status for 2 generations. And even then, when we met every requirement, you rejected us and added more restrictions. You made it clear that we would never be good enough. We misjudged you. We asked for a chance to correct that mistake. Hai Jin leaned forward. Let me ask you something. Why should we return? You have nothing we need. Our economy is stronger now than it ever was when we traded with you. Our research progresses faster without council oversight. Our people are safer without your conflicts. Our culture flourishes without trying to accommodate alien sensibilities. What exactly do we gain by engaging with you again? The delegation had no answer. They had assumed humanity needed the council, that isolation would weaken them. The opposite had happened. The Quintari are dying, one delegate said desperately. Millions of innocent people. Yes, Hai Jin agreed. And that is tragic. But they are your people, your responsibility. You have thousands of species in your council, vast resources, brilliant minds. Solve your own problems. We cannot. Not without human expertise. Then perhaps you should have thought about that before expelling us. The meeting ended badly. The delegation reported back to the council that humanity would not help, would not negotiate, would not engage. Velther, facing the collapse of his leadership, made one last desperate move. He traveled to the human border himself, requesting a meeting with the highest human authority. To his surprise, they agreed. President Taijin Quan received him on the border station, a neutral location. Velther's crystalline body seemed dimmer than Taijin remembered, as if the weight of his failures had made him physically fade. President Quan, I come to you personally to beg for help. Not as council speaker, but as a member of a species watching its people die. Please. Taijin studied him. You understand that this is the same plague that struck your people 30 years ago. The same one human researchers helped you eradicate. The same one we warned you could return if you did not maintain the monitoring protocols we established. We maintained them. No, you did not. We have been monitoring your public health data. It is not classified. The protocols were abandoned 3 years after we left. You decided that human paranoia was unnecessary. Velther could not deny it. We made mistakes. You made choices. You chose to ignore human advice. You chose to expel humanity from the council. You chose to reject our offers of partnership. These were not mistakes. These were decisions that reflected your values and priorities. You are living with the consequences. Are you truly willing to let millions die to make a point? Taijin's expression hardened. We are not making a point. We are living our lives. Your crisis is not our responsibility. You have a council of 1,000 species. Ask them for help. They cannot help. They do not have the expertise. Then develop it. Research. Experiment. Learn. That is what we did before we met you. That is what we are doing now. You can do the same. Velther tried appeals to morality, to shared history, to common decency. Nothing moved Taijin. Finally, the Quantari leader said the words that had been eating at him for 7 years. We were wrong to reject you. You were equals. You are superior to us in ways we did not want to admit. We feared your growth, your innovation, your potential. We tried to contain you, and we drove you away. I am sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. Taijin was quiet for a long moment. I believe you. I believe you understand now what you lost. But it does not change anything. Please. No. But I will do one thing. Taijin pulled out a data chip. This contains the treatment protocols for the current plague strain. Not the research methodology, not the development process, just the final treatment. It is a gift, freely given, with no strings attached. Velther took the chip with trembling appendages. Why? Why give us this if you will not help us? Because we are not you. We do not withhold aid to prove a point or maintain superiority. We care about life. But caring about life does not mean we owe you our service, our partnership, or our presence. Take the treatment. Save your people. And know that you will never have humanity at your side again. Velther left with the cure, and the Quantari were saved. But the council had learned its lesson too late. Over the following years, some species approached humanity individually, seeking bilateral relations outside the council framework. Humanity agreed to some of these, carefully selected partnerships based on mutual respect and equal standing. The Rel, who had always treated humans fairly, became trading partners. The Sorvan, who had opposed the original sanctions, established research collaborations, but there was no return to the council. No grand reunion. No forgiveness. 50 years after the departure, a new species called the Venari petitioned the council for membership. They were young, enthusiastic, innovative. They reminded some of the older council members of humanity in their early days. During the petition process, a young Venari diplomat asked a question. What happened to the humans? Your records show they were active members once, but then they just disappeared. Where did they go? The council chamber grew quiet. Velther had died years earlier, his legacy tarnished by the human departure. The current speaker was a younger Quantari named Kores, who had lived through the plague. The humans left because we asked them to, Koresh said carefully. We thought we did not need them. We were wrong. Where are they now? In their own space. They are thriving. They are powerful. And they want nothing to do with us. The Vanari diplomat looked confused. But why not? Surely there is value in cooperation. There is. But cooperation must be based on mutual respect. We failed to give them that. And so they left. It is the Council's greatest mistake and greatest lesson. Can they not be convinced to return? Koresh gestured to the empty section of the council chamber where human representatives had once sat. That chair has been empty for half a century. We have left it open, hoping. But no human has ever returned to claim it. We believe none ever will. The Vanari were approved for membership, and they flourished. They filled some of the roles that humans had once filled, though never quite as well. The galaxy continued, diminished but functional dot in human space. Dahim Park died peacefully at the age of 97. His funeral was attended by representatives from the few species humanity maintained relations with, but no one from the council came. They had not been invited. At his memorial, Minji Choi gave a speech. Dahin taught us something important. He taught us that we do not need to be wanted by everyone. We do not need to prove ourselves to those who do not value us. We do not need to serve those who do not respect us.